Hello and welcome to Louise Singleton Creations. In today's video, I have two hot new products to show you. I have the resin bubble remover machine from Let's Resin and also their resin mixer with the stand to make it hands-free. Now, I think either of these could really up your resin game, but together, well, apart from being a handsome couple, I think they'll be a formidable team. Shall we find out and have a closer look? Yeah, let's go. Okay, let's start with the resin mixer, and as you would expect, it came very well packaged. Let's Resin products always come with fabulous packaging. Inside the package, the first thing you will find is another thing Let's Resin is well known for, and that is the detailed instruction manual, which will tell you everything you need to know, as well as some frequently asked questions which had some interesting information in there. So other than that, inside the box, I got the main body of the resin mixer and two paddles, a large and a small. I also got the connection cable for recharging it. So that's really good that you can recharge it and you don't have to keep it connected to the mains while you're using it. And then there's also the stand, which came in two pieces and it clipped together easily. One feature I really like about the mixer itself is that it's got slots on it and then there's grooves in the stand. So when you put the mixer into the stand, it slots in and it won't spin around when you're mixing your resin. And I think that's a really good improvement. There's a handy knob on the side to adjust the height, and there's also a silicone mat on the base. So yeah, that's everything you get in the box. To turn it on, it's a long press on the power button and it will go straight on to the lowest speed. And then you can press it again to go on to the next speed and again to go on to the fastest speed. And as you will see, it's got a wobble to it, and that's intentional. That oscillation makes a good contribution to making sure your resin is thoroughly mixed. And it's not too noisy either, is it? So here at the top on the side, there is the reverse button if you want to change the direction of the mixing. The next button on the side is the timer button. If you want to preset it for a specific time, you can do that, and you can just press it multiple times and it will go up minute by minute. And the third button on the side is the AI button, and if you use that one, it will automatically mix for 4 minutes, and then when it's finished, there will be a buzzer that goes off to remind you that it's finished mixing. Because with it being hands-free, once you've set it going, you can just leave it if you want to. So let's pour some resin and see how it performs. Now I'm really putting it to the test today. I've chosen my thickest, highest viscosity resin from Let's Resin, and that's the Fast Cure resin. I have warmed it up in a heat bath because yeah, it is very, very thick, and it helps you a lot if you warm it up first, and that will reduce the viscosity. It's a 1-to-1 mixing ratio by volume, so I measured 2 fluid ounces of part A and 2 fluid ounces of part B. Once my resin was measured out, I simply put it onto the stand with the mixer in place at the same time. There we go. And then I like to use the fast function. I don't use the AI function or the timer function so much. At the moment, when I get used to it, I might decide to use that. But I just like to set it onto the highest speed and just stop it when it looks mixed. And also another thing that I found was, because I had quite a high depth of resin and I wanted to make sure it was mixed right at the bottom and right at the top, I did use the knob on the side to raise the height of the paddle and lower it every now and again, just to make sure that there was a thorough mixing. And if you're still worried that it's not touching the sides and there's still unmixed resin in there, you can always move the cup around so that the paddle is touching the side of the cup and the base of the cup, just to make extra sure. I'm not sure it's necessary, but yeah, that's an option you have. So with this resin, because it's very thick, I did mix it for about 2 to 3 minutes, I think. But in a previous video where I used this, I used the regular epoxy resin from Let's Resin, and I only mixed it for 1 minute. I didn't do anything to it. I didn't move the cup. I did lower and raise the paddle, but that's all I did, and it was done in 1 minute and it was perfectly clear. So once I'd finished mixing, I raised the paddle and allowed the excess epoxy to drip off the paddle just for a little while, and then I removed the cup, and any further drips just dripped onto the silicone mat. And as you can probably see, the resin is really quite clear, not too many bubbles at all. So yeah, a lot of people worry that it's going to be like a whisking action and it will incorporate bubbles into it, but I think the paddles have been designed in such a way that that doesn't happen. Right, our resin is ready. Let's have a look at the bubble remover machine before we put it into action. So the first thing that struck me about this was the size of it. It's really big compared to the other bubble remover machines I've tried in the past. This one has got such a wide base, it means you can use larger vessels in there. At the back you have the air extraction port and the cable port, and then on the lid it's very streamlined, isn't it? And it's got a little handle there at the top and it just comes off easily. And then there's a rubber seal, or it might be silicone, a seal around the edge to make sure you get a good vacuum. And then you have the control knob at the front, which is very simple to use. You can just turn it and then press it to go. And when the power's switched on, you can see that it's got a display screen there. The numbers at the bottom are for the time. So if you turn the knob to the right, it increases the time that it's going to work for. And then just move it back again to decrease the time. And this can be changed whilst it's in operation if you decide you need more or less time. And the numbers at the top, when it gets going, will tell you how much vacuum pressure there is. And if it's working correctly, which it will be, it will go up to 99. So when you've set your time, all you need to do is press the button, and as you can see there, the numbers for the vacuum pressure go up, and yeah, they'll keep going up to 99 like I just mentioned. Okay then, let's see it in action. I've put the resin in and I set the timer for 10 minutes. I knew that it was going to be difficult to get all the bubbles out of this with it being such a thick resin, so I knew it would take at least 10 minutes. In the end, it actually took 12. I did, turn the knob and give it a little bit more time. And that sounds like a long time, doesn't it? It takes time off your working time. But don't worry, because I'll tell you something quite important that I haven't told you yet. I used this cup because it was the only sized clear cup I had. And because it's quite small, the resin is very high in the cup, isn't it? And so the bubbles have got much further to go. But if you can use a container which is much larger, the resin will be more shallow and the bubbles will have less distance to go. So we're going to do that next. So this bubble remover works by taking the air out to create a vacuum, and when it's finished it puts the air back in to release the vacuum, and you don't have to do anything. So that's a good feature to this, which is different to the ones I've tried before where you've got to open the valve to let the air back in manually. So when it gets to the point where there's only bubbles on the surface and not too many within the resin, it can be stopped and the rest of the bubbles will disappear as the air gets introduced back inside. And I'll be honest with you, I was so busy watching those bubbles rising to the top. It's quite mesmerising. I wasn't watching the timer. If I had have been, I would have given it an extra couple of minutes. I didn't realise it was almost finished. And yeah, I think an extra couple of minutes would have been good because this resin took a long time. It's so thick. So even though I didn't quite give it long enough, I was still very impressed with the clarity of the resin. It's kind of hard to see the clarity because the outside of my cup had got a bit sticky, but it was fairly clear, to be honest. And any bubbles left at the top can just be popped with a torch very easily. So you're going to see me making two things today to demonstrate the clarity, but I will tell you now, neither of the things that I'm making are what I would normally use fast cure resin for. Fast cure resin is best if you pour it in a shallow layer, and both the things I make today are quite deep. So yeah, I would recommend deep pour resin or Let's Resin's regular resin for something like this, but this is just for demonstration really. This is the large crystal cluster mould from Let's Resin. And before I show you that being demoulded, let me go back to the bubble remover machine and show you the top tip that I was talking about. So this time I've mixed up the same amount of resin before in just the same way with the resin mixer. And this time I found an old takeaway container which I'd kept, not used. We all have those lying in our cupboard somewhere, don't we? They usually fall out when you open the cupboard door and you never end up using them. But anyway, I'm using mine today and it fits just right in the machine, and it definitely wouldn't have fitted in the other machines you've seen me review in the past. So that large base really does make a big difference. And I've poured it all in and you can see how shallow the depth is, can't you? And that made a massive difference. So I did my first lot of resin for 12 minutes, didn't I? And in fact, it needed a bit more. But this time I've decided to try and do it for half the time and I set it for 6 minutes. Let's see what happened. And here it is with bubbles on the surface just before it's about to put the air back in there. Let's see. And there we go, isn't that better? It's clearer and it took half the time just by using a larger container. Thank you Let's Resin for making your bubble remover machine so large. It made a massive difference. Okay, so this time I'm pouring the resin into my sphere mould from Let's Resin. I thought I'd try making a little magnifier. Okay, so let's have a look at what I made. This is the first one and I was slightly concerned because there had been a few bubbles left in the resin and yeah, that was my fault, wasn't it really? But we'll have a look to see how it turned out. So here it is. This is 5 hours after pouring it because it's the fast cure resin and it's turned out quite clear, hasn't it? In fact, I'll go as far as to say I can't see any bubbles at all. So yeah, considering it was the wrong kind of resin really for this mould, I'm very impressed with what the bubble remover machine has done for this resin. And for the magnifier, I didn't film the demoulding because it was a pain to get out. I had to take it to my sink and use some water, but it's almost clear, couple of bubbles in there, but not bad at all. As I said before, the regular epoxy would work much better for something like this. So we've come to the end of the video, and I have to say I'm very impressed with these tools from Let's Resin. Please check out my video description for links and discount codes. If you've enjoyed the video or found it useful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you would like to. And I will see you again very soon. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.